Okay, today I'm going to talk a little bit about starting with your animal. You can see here that I have drawn out my frog shape, and then the first thing I did is I cut this page so it was smaller. And I just went from the edge to the very tip of the toe, to the other tip of the toe, and then to the tip of the nose, and then off. I find it easier to cut if my if my paper's a little bit smaller. So then, just a review for cutting. When you are cutting, it's important that you work with your thumbs up, and you want to hold the larger part of the paper. So I'm going to be cutting this part off here. I'm turning it so I'm holding it with my helper hand and cutting off the smaller part instead of holding with the small part and cutting and having the big part on the side I am cutting. Okay, so you want to make sure that you are holding your paper so that the helper hand gets most of it, and then you're just going to go along, and your helper hand is busy. My scissors stay pretty still. They kind of go straight up and down, but I am turning the paper as I cut. And here I'm going to cut to the edge and then turn and then go back up to the toe. I'm not going to try and get down that really small spot right now. Once I cut that part off, I can go back and cut this smaller part out a little bit easier. So when you are cutting, you want to try and work into corners instead of out of them. So then when I have those two pieces cut together, then that little part comes out. Okay, I'm just going to continue cutting this. Now here, this is a little bit of a bigger space, so it's a little bit easier for me to turn my scissors and continue cutting. So that's the other way that you can do it. Now I'm turning my paper again, so I'm holding the big part and following along. You want to be very careful when you cut to include all those details that you drew so that it looks like the same object when you're finished. Okay? Now here with these smaller ones, I'm going to cut in just like I did before. Cut in towards it, stop, and then cut on the other side. And I should be able to just have that either fall out or just pop out. Here when I cut, I'm going to go along, go to the tips, and I'm actually going to go to this tip over here, and then turn and get this big piece out. Do the bigger cutting here. Again, using my helper hand. Staying on the big piece, the part I want to keep. Turning the paper along with the scissors so I get smooth cuts. And it's okay if you have a lot of pieces here when you are cutting, because the big part I want to keep is the frog itself. Okay, I'm going to do this little part here. Oops. And if you're a little bit off, no one's probably going to know besides you. Okay, now I just have these other small parts to go back to. So again, I'm going to cut into the corner, stop, and then go back and cut in from the other side. So I can peel that out. And then do the same thing here. And then with my last little space. Cutting towards the corner, stopping, and then going back. Now this is where it gets a little bit tricky because of how you're cutting. Now I have my shape. So then I have my other colors picked out already. And I'm going to put my green on top of my blue. So I'm going to, you can do one of two things. If you'd like to, you could glue, well, I guess I don't want you to glue it down. So we're going to hold this down, and I'm going to draw around my frog, trying to leave an equal amount of space all the way around the frog. I'm going to lose some of the details as I get bigger, making sure that I hold the paper down and try to keep a consistent edge so that the border around this frog is the same thickness all the way around. Okay. You can see that the toes on the frog have gotten smaller, less detailed. Then I go back to the top and do it again. Okay, so this is now going to be my second layer. I'm going to cut that out, and I'm going to take the purple, I'm going to trace it onto the blue and cut that one out. So I should have 3 layers of frogs that slowly get bigger and finally bigger.